So Bhagavad-gita is the essential book of Krishna consciousness. It's the essential book of what is life all about. The very word or title, Bhagavad-gita, means the song or word of God. Bhagavan means God. But the understanding of what is God, what is absolute truth, in all its diverse manifestations and energies, that knowledge and information is really only available in completeness, which is ultimately necessary if one wants to be completely satisfied, if one wants to have half truth and half external materialism. There's so many philosophies and religions that can suit your desire. One definition of Krishna is given in the Sri Upanishad. He's the self-sufficient philosopher who is fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. The most important realization to come to, and it's very, very simple, yet in this age it seems very complicated, that Krishna is God. He is the supreme owner of everything, and everyone is his energy. He identifies the living entities as his marginal, separated energy, you, I, and every living entity in this material world and universe and cosmic manifestation. The Vedic literatures give 8,400,000 different species of life. Like we say, it's not cars and buses driving down the street on 2nd Avenue. It's people driving the cars and buses down the street. So it's not hogs, dogs, cats, fish, trees, human beings, but it's souls. It's described, yantra means machine. This body is a machine made out of material nature. So just like when you get a very sophisticated and complicated machine, like a Mac computer, is it things that are more complicated that the consumer could buy than that?
Seems like this machinery behind you is complicated for people at 22 2nd Avenue anyway.
Well, because they break it all the time?
Well, I guess the screen over there, it's always turning off and on. I get lots of emails about it.
Oh, I see. So, what now? Okay, you get a fancy computer, technological device, a fancy car, and it just didn't pop out of nowhere, but it was created, manufactured by people who very, very carefully and intelligently and painstakingly created that in accord with, hopefully, they want to make it the best they possibly can. Planned obsolescence otherwise, right? So you're stuck having to buy another one after it breaks in 2 or 3 years. But Krishna's not like that. He's the supreme engineer, and whatever he creates is perfect. But actually, this material world has planned obsolescence in it. 4 problems that no matter how great a scientist, philosopher, scholar, or whatever you fancy yourself to be, very intelligent, you cannot solve, nor you will ever be able to solve. And these are the main problems of life in this material world: birth, death, old age, and disease. Those 4 primary unwanted things, miserable conditions actually. No one likes to die. If they say that they do, then they're just crazy, and they haven't really understood what death means. These things are meant to ultimately bring us to our senses, to regain the awareness that this material world is not our home, and there's no way you can make a permanent settlement for happiness here, no matter what. Just like this city, New York, and so many other big cities around the world, let's look at Millionaires Row, 5th Avenue, from 59th Street on the Upper East Side going all the way up. John Jacob Astor and John J.P. Morgan, John Rockefeller, and so many others built these fabulous buildings. Where are they now? You cannot stay. You have to get out. It's just like your lease agreement is up. Get out. We don't want to renew the lease. How troublesome is that, right? Anybody? I've lived in 5 different places. Actually, I've lived in 8 different places. I lived in one place, but within that I changed 3 different places in that place in the last 7 years. It's very cumbersome and troublesome moving. So death is like that. Get out. And because people live in gross ignorance, performing all types of heinous, sinful activities, and in this age of Kali, this age that we're living in, people think they're so much covered over by illusion that not only do they take pleasure in performing these sinful activities like eating meat, performing abortions, having all different types of illicit sex, doing different types of business and money making that put others into great distress and suffering. They think they're quite justified in doing that. And the result is that not only does not anybody know where they're going at the time of death, but they practically don't even care. So the Bhagavad-gita is the manufacturer's owner's manual that comes with your body, with your mind, with your intelligence, with your very life and soul. So the Bhagavad-gita, because it's spoken by Krishna, he is the source of the spiritual energy. The spiritual energy, Vaikuntha, no anxiety, no death, no old age, no disease, no birth. You're eternal. Indeed, that's the first instruction in the beginning of the Bhagavad-gita. The immortal soul, even he's passing through various stages in life. We're born, we're an infant, we're a toddler, we're a youngster, we're a teenager, we're a youth, we're an adult, we're middle-aged, beginning of old age, and the final stroke is death. But a self-realized person, in other words, one who's renovated, he's lost eternal loving relationship with Krishna, he's not bewildered by the change of body. In fact, he welcomes it. And the example is given just as you are wearing garments or clothes and they get old and you give them up and you get new clothes. Or, well, it's not hot anymore, but like a month or two ago, especially in July, 95-degree days, what's the first thing you do when you want to go home after spending a half an hour in the subway and walking in the street and all these things? You're all sweaty. You want to take off the sweaty, smelly clothes, take a nice shower, and put on new, clean clothes. That's just sensible. So the so-called old age disease and ultimate impending death, that's what old age is. It's like the yellow light. Get ready, the red light is coming. You know, your bodily beauty is gone. The opposite sex no longer attracted to you. Or in many cases, you know, you've been with somebody, but the sense gratification is over because you're old and ugly, so they trade you in for a younger model. That's a saying that they have, right? And actually, wisdom and self-realization is the real beauty. And just like our Srila Prabhupada, he came here, actually this is very significant, this storefront, this is the same original pre-war building that somehow has not been sold to fancy developers like next door that used to be a gas station. And this place was the beginning of Srila Prabhupada's worldwide Krishna consciousness movement in accord with authorized acharyas and spiritual masters in all holy scriptures and books, most authorized movement, ultimately from Krishna himself, and it started right here in this little storefront. So luckily we have a nice relationship with the owners, who are descendants of the original owner 53 years ago, and we're lucky to be here. So it's a very potent place on a spiritual basis. So the Bhagavad-gita, it instructs everything, and the ultimate conclusion, which is what we're hearing now, we're coming to the end, we're in the 18th chapter, which is like the tour de force of Krishna, where everything that he has said before, he's saying it in perfect clarity, in stunning summarization, with great power, poignancy, and beauty. So hence the chapter is called The Perfection of Renunciation. And as we're hearing, as we heard last week in verse number 54, the qualifications that one ultimately achieves to pure devotional service, which is the culmination of all endeavor, all aspiration, the perfection of all desire, beyond cultivation of knowledge, even knowledge which even the greatest scholars and philosophers and professors, more or less these universities, are just simply wasting people's time, money, and energy, keeping them in ignorance, because they're not teaching real knowledge. Real knowledge means to know that, what is material, what is spiritual. In other words, what is permanent, what is eternal. Krishna is eternal. He has a Satchit Ananda form of eternality. If one is eternal, there's no birth, there's no old age. Ever youthful. People have a conception. Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel. God must be a very old man. He's the oldest. He's the source of life for the greatest demigods. He's the source of life for all the forefathers, progenitors of mankind. Yet, he is ever fresh, like a pubescent teenage youth. That's the ultimate feature of God. Simply enjoy. Simply happiness. And we are Anandamaya Vyasat. We are expanded marginal energy of Krishna, meant to cooperate and reciprocate by being a secondary enjoyer to Krishna's supreme enjoyment one really enjoys. Was to try to be a false imitative enjoyer of Krishna's activities in this material world puts you in the most abominable, degraded position. As we were hearing about, enjoyment in the modes of nature actually degrade you and actually put you into lower species of life in complete ignorance. These are the laws of nature that Prabhupada, just like, if somebody is, say you're sitting next to somebody driving and they fell asleep at the wheel, and the car is just about to go off the road, and everyone's driven on the highway and seen like somebody fell asleep in a terrible accident, and then all the equipment, jaws of life, and worse, So hey, you'll grab the wheel and steer it right. So the blind are leading the blind, and everyone is going into the ditch, falling into the abyss of the modes of material nature, and missing the real purpose of this human form of life, which is to get out of the cycle of repeated birth and death. Yes, reincarnation, but it's like getting left back in school. It's real, but you don't want it. Actually, having a material body and being in this material world is the emblem of your disqualification, just like being in prison. You don't have to ask. Some people maybe, they're innocent. They have like the Innocent Project and people are wrongfully convicted, but not in this material world. People are in this material world for a very good reason. So we shouldn't be proud of this material body, and try to become rich and famous and beautiful and popular. Cheap popularity. You become popular amongst the prisoners in the prison? What kind of popularity is that? All these scandal and sleazy magazines, this celebrity did this and that. And who could care less? What does it mean? So understanding what is devotional service, what is love of Godhead, this is real knowledge. And we'll hear that today in today's purport to verse 55. So this was a attempt on my part to make an introductory preamble so we can enter into the momentous subject matter with greater qualification at the onset. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Please repeat. One can understand me as I am.
One can understand me as I am.
As the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
As the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Only by devotional service.
Only by devotional service.
And when one is in full consciousness of me,
and when one is in full consciousness of me,
by such devotion,
he
can enter into the kingdom of God.
He can enter into the kingdom of God.
Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and His plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by the non-devotees. If anyone wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to take to pure devotional service under the guidance of a pure devotee. Otherwise, the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will always be hidden. As already stated in the Bhagavad-gita, chapter 7, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, verse 25, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. He is not revealed to everyone. No one can understand God simply by erudite scholarship or mental speculation. Only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. University degrees are not helpful. One who is fully conversant with the Krishna science becomes eligible to enter into the spiritual kingdom, the abode of Krishna. Becoming Brahman does not mean that one loses his identity. Devotional service is there, and as long as devotional service exists, there must be God, the devotee, and the process of devotional service. Such knowledge is never vanquished, even after liberation. Liberation involves getting free from the concept of material life. In spiritual life, the same distinction is there. The same individuality is there. But in pure Krishna consciousness, one should not mistakenly think that the word vishate enters into me, supports the monist philosophy theory that one becomes homogeneous with the impersonal Brahman. No. Vishate means that one can enter into the abode of the Supreme Lord in one's individuality to engage in His association and render service unto Him. For instance, a green bird enters a green tree, not to become one with the tree, but to enjoy the fruits of the tree. Impersonalists generally give the example of a river flowing into the ocean and merging. This may be a source of happiness for the impersonalist, but the personalist keeps his personal individuality like an aquatic in the ocean. We find so many living entities within the ocean if we go deep. Surface acquaintance with the ocean is not sufficient. One must have complete knowledge of the aquatics living in the ocean depths. Because of his pure devotional service, a devotee can understand the transcendental qualities and the opulences of the Supreme Lord in truth. As it is stated in the 11th chapter, which is called the universal form of the Lord, only by devotional service can one understand. The same is confirmed here. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotional service and enter into his kingdom. After attainment of the Brahma Bhuta stage of freedom from material conceptions, devotional service begins by one's hearing about the Lord. When one hears about the Supreme Lord, automatically the Brahma Bhuta stage develops, and material contaminations, greediness, and lust for sense enjoyment disappears. As lust and desires disappear from the heart of a devotee, he becomes more attached to the service of the Lord. And by such attachment, he becomes free from material contamination. In that state of life, he can understand the Supreme Lord. This is the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam also. After liberation, the process of bhakti, or transcendental service, continues. The Vedanta Sutra 4.1.12 confirms this. Apranayat tatrapi hi dristam. This means that after liberation, the process of devotional service continues. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, real devotional liberation is defined as the reinstatement of the living entity in his own identity, his own constitutional position. The constitutional position is already explained. Every living entity is a part and parcel, fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his constitutional position is to serve. After liberation, this service is never stopped. Actual liberation is getting free from misconceptions of life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master is opening my eyes with a torch of transcendental knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Didati Sva Vedanti Kam. When will Srila Rupa Goswami, who is our Sampradaya Samstakacharya, the leader, we are known as Rupanugas. He is the chief disciple of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared 500 years ago to inaugurate the true religious spiritual process for this age, Nam Sankirtan, the chanting of congregational, the more the merrier, better, everyone together, chanting Hare Krishna, Maha Mantra. You know, class action suit is more valuable than just like one person whining and moaning and groaning. But if you get like, you know, hundreds and thousands of people together, exercising their choice to raise their voice. So we do that and chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the very nature of that, it is supreme pure devotional service. And the beauty of chanting Hare Krishna is everything will be purified and clarified, no matter what, as long as one keeps doing it. Foolproof method. Chaito Darpana. Therefore, glory, let there be all victory to this Sankirtan of chanting Hare Krishna, because it will cleanse the heart of all the dirt, dust, and unwanted troublesome things that have accumulated like a huge pile of garbage, life after life. You know, we're looking at this life, oh, I had a bad childhood and this, that. Since time immemorial, everything is clarified, giving one the ability to taste the real. People have no, the problem when you sell your soul to material happiness, you lose all awareness and you completely forget what is spiritual happiness. Material happiness compared to spiritual happiness is comparing a rotten penny in the gutter to $10 billion. There's no comparison. Prema and kama, mundane lust and love of Godhead. So therefore, intelligent, sincere people strive to achieve prema, love of Godhead. And as we're hearing here, we'll get back to where we're going. Only by devotional service can I be understood as I am. Will you let me in your house if I'm a stark raving lunatic, a madman? One time somebody didn't like us and they were harassing us and they followed us back. Luckily they stayed in the subway where we live. But then, would you let him in your house? Who do you let in your house? Your trusted friends and family members. You'll even give them the key. Or there's people have these locks now that have keys in them all over the place. There's even somebody put one on our side here, this big master thing, and it's like a lock, but you can slide a key in there, and if you know the combination, you can, So Krishna's like that. This material world is full of disturbing elements, but the beautiful thing in Krishna's Vaikuntha Goloka Vrindavan, there's no disturbing elements. Everyone there is perfect. There is diversity, but unity in diversity, and diversity within that unity. Whereas here, there can be no uniting because everyone is trying to become Krishna's competitor. So everyone's envious of everyone else, and we'll make pacts and societies and communities, cliques, and even it'll rise up to be countries, where we share the so-called same interests, and then we don't like other people. We fight over the natural resources, but ultimately, so we pray to Srila Rupa Goswami, who's established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, which is to benedict this world with love of Godhead, not considering who was fit or who was unfit. Krishna has all transcendental desirable qualities in full. He's the reservoir of all of them. Saintly magnanimity. No one can be more compassionate than Krishna. And in his most compassionate feature is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's giving this most highest gift that only the most qualified, purified persons can have. He's giving it freely in the form of the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Therefore, Krishna Varnam Tasa Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yagnai Sankirtana Prayerya Jantihi Sumedhasaha. In this age of Kali, those who Su, this prefix always means very good and auspicious. So people have names like Sunanda, Subhadra, Sughosh, Su, Indian names, means very good. Medhasaha, very good brain, very, very nice thinking process. Very good analyzation of all the factors, taking everything into account and coming to a proper conclusion that satisfies everyone. Sumedasa, those endowed with good thinking, they will worship Lord Chaitanya, who appears with his associates who perform Harinam Sankirtan, which is the supreme anga, the highest method of pleasing Krishna. And the perfection of life. Actually, all study and all knowledge culminates in chanting Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said our most important task of those who are actually wise and thoughtful and saintly and compassionate, they must dedicate their life for the purpose of re-spiritualizing human society by distributing real knowledge. That is the best use of one's life. Prabhupada says, this Krishna consciousness movement is a call for the most noble-minded, intelligent men and women of this world to come forward and sacrifice that you give your life to Krishna. What you get in exchange, unlimitedly more than what you think. Like people with investment, I'm going to We say in our speech out there, everything to gain, nothing to lose. Where do you get a deal like that in the material world? Everything is calculation, profit and loss. Money, business, relationships, political, posturing, So Srila Rupa Goswami is distributing the knowledge, which ultimately is meant to convince everyone, not like Benjamin Franklin, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Krishna doesn't like that, I was just hearing Prabhupada in room conversation, Washington, D.C., Potomac, Maryland, 1976, July. That was at the occasion of the 200th bicentennial of America. 1776, 1976. Big deal for those who were there back then. Anyway, that I hold a gun to your head. Love me. I love you. That's not love. Love means freely giving. Because I want. To know me is to love me, like the saying goes. So you cannot know Krishna unless you love him. And he's the supreme lovable person, the very self of yourself, the very soul of your soul. So transcendental loving service to Krishna, to please Krishna, is the perfection of one's own heart's desire. And because that's true for everyone else, then the commonality of relationship with each other, with love of Krishna in the center, makes for the perfection of all life, civilization, exchange, everything. And ultimately, this material world, for one on that platform of Krishna Sambandha, relationship with Krishna, he doesn't see the things of this world as objects for external gratification, what to speak of himself, or for the people of this world. He sees everything as bhoga, meant for the enjoyment of Krishna, and he utilizes everything in that way. That is real renunciation, as it says in this purport, getting free from misconceptions of life. So we pray to our Guru Varga, our line of spiritual teachers, pure devotees, who have fully realized this knowledge and are very compassionate upon us, their students and disciples, and want for us to fully realize that knowledge so we ultimately become qualified to become spiritual masters ourselves in line and distribute it generationally. That is the most noble thing to do. And not that one have to have some official mandate, but surrender to Krishna, loving Krishna, becoming posted as a qualified representative of Krishna. That has nothing to do with votes. It's a question of sincere spiritual attainment, with which Krishna, as the Lord of your heart, will notice. And he'll give you all facility. You just have to be sincere. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapana Kamalam Shri Guru and Vaishnavams Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakavitam Cha. Hey Krishna, and the ultimate feature of the absolute truth, Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmanyataya Cha, Jagaditaya Krishnaya, Govindaya Namo Namaha, Radha and Krishna, and more powerfully presented even here in Goloka Vrindavan and all Vaikuntha planets where the Lord is worshipped in awe and reverence. Krishna's own planet, awe and reverence is eclipsed and ultimately matures in ultimately the sweetest, spontaneous prema or equal love. In the four primary rasas, servitude, friendship, equal friendship, parenthood, and ultimately conjugal, lover and beloved, which is the supreme spiritual happiness, Radha and Krishna. Dibyad Bandaranya Kalpachumada Srimad Ratnagara Singha Shri Radha Govinda, who are the presiding deities of New York, installed by Srila Prabhupada here in 1972. Prastalavi Savyamano Smarami, in a temple of jewels underneath the desire trees in Vrindavan, seated upon an effulgent throne, are the most beautiful divine couple, Shri Shri Radha and Govinda, served by their most confidential loving associates. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto them. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees and can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls, because they know what really is meant to be in store for everyone, and they never take offense by even the most heinous, gross, and subtle offenses. Jesus Christ was crucified. Forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do. They always continue to bestow the gift of love of Godhead without hesitation upon all offenders. That is their mercy. The devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they know the inner purpose of the Lord. Therefore, they take all types of risks in approaching ignorant people to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which is absolutely mandatory, necessary for the living being. And it's described, such activity constitutes the highest method of worship. You want to understand what is Radha and Krishna? This is what you do. It is said that saintly persons almost always accept voluntary suffering for the sake of uplifting fallen humanity. Such activity constitutes the highest method of worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who lives in everyone's heart. Temple worship is very nice, but that's for the neophytes. The advanced devotees, they spend their time distributing Krishna consciousness to everyone. That is the real temple, the ultimate temple, and that is the best way that Shri Shri Radha Govinda are ultimately worshipped. And our acharyas have said that if we remain in the temple, then, and Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master's institution, the Gaudiya Math, was deviated due to infighting and ego and politics. I want to be famous, I want to be prominent, all nonsense. Trinadapi Sunechena. One can always engage in chanting the holy name in an ecstatic rapture if one is prepared to give all respect to others. And the ultimate way of respecting others is to respect their soul and their inalienable right and privilege to engage in Krishna consciousness, not the body and mind. Respect the real person. And not want any respect for oneself. Then actually one can always, Sadahari, be engaged in the ecstasy of love of Krishna by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The Supreme Personality of Godhead and his plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by the non-devotees. That's very good. There's verses in the Vedic literature said, this is very nice that the non-devotees can't understand you. Why should they? One time Prabhupada was challenged, some ribald hippie on a drug trip, just stood up. Swamiji, I just wanted to let you know that I'm actually God. And Prabhupada said, you are not God, you are a dog, And Prabhupada went on to say, who should we believe? The acharyas who have had, intact disciplic lines for thousands of years, with the most high-class disciples and personalities maintaining the conclusion or siddhanta without adulteration or compromise through the millennium, and so many great personalities accepting the truth that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only Ekala Ishvara Krishna, only one Supreme Lord. Everyone else is there. Who should we believe? Should we believe them and that, or should we believe you, a loafer in the street? Not by mental speculation, nor by the non-devotees. That's why mental speculation ultimately culminates in some type of superiority complex. That's it. doesn't lead anywhere. If anyone wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to take to pure devotional service under the guidance of a pure devotee. That is the power of a pure devotee that actually Marj Rahugana, he was a very great king, and he made the mistake. He didn't understand a great saintly person, Chud Bharat, who was not, Prabhupada says, one cannot understand who is a pure devotee unless one happens to be a pure devotee oneself. You'll misunderstand. Anyway, long story short, Chud Bharat revealed himself and gave extraordinary teachings, and this king realized his idea that I'm a great personality was just like concoction and false imagination, and he paid his humble respects and begged pardon for any offenses committed, and Chud Bharat instructed him in very wonderful spiritual knowledge. In the conclusion, he said, by taking shelter of your words, all the misconceptions and knots of material attachment in my heart have been removed. That is the power of the pure devotee. Narottam Das Thakur says, O Vaishnav Goswami, where can one find such a worshipful personality, but in one's mere presence, all sins go far away. I have to admit, when I was a child, I saw the movie Ben-Hur with Charlton Heston. Anyway, so he's like wrongfully put into slavery in the Roman galley ships, and he's like being dragged, with other prisoners. He has to walk, and somehow or another they come upon Jesus, who's giving out water, and the Roman in charge is saying, only the Roman soldiers and horses get water, not the prisoners, And Jesus ignored that. And they don't show Jesus' face in the picture, but, and then they played like holy music, like, ooh, And so like Ben-Hur gets the goblet or the chalice with the water, and he's drinking, he's looking at Jesus' face, he's like, wow. And then the Roman soldier comes and like, he's about to chastise Jesus, and like the Roman's like, and goes away and lets Jesus give, anyway. By whose mere audience all sins go away. I'm one of the early disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Many have this realization. I'm reading a little memoir of a book called Vaikuntanath Das. He and his wife, Saradia, she joined in San Francisco only 16 years old in 1967. And she actually became a great artist. And she and her husband, they were the first devotees to go to Trinidad in Guyana in 1970, actually. A little interesting history. So he gives the memoir that whenever I came into Prabhupada's presence, I just felt so ecstatically happy. And all my problems just disappeared. I had these problems and they just all went away. I couldn't even think what I was in anxiety about anymore. And it was just everything it was just exuding all this ecstasy and happiness and love. And I just, wherever Prabhupada was, I wanted to be where he was. And that's actually what he did. He joined here in New York, and then Prabhupada had to go to Montreal to get his visa fixed up. He went and spent the summer of 1968 in Montreal. And then Prabhupada, went to Boston, and then he went here, he went there, everywhere. It's just like, wow. So actually, this Krishna consciousness movement is based upon Srila Prabhupada's ecstasy and his own love for Krishna and service to his spiritual master. So being guided by and everyone in this, we say Prabhupada is Jagat Guru. He is the spiritual master of everyone in this entire world. He's given very special empowerment. So when you read Prabhupada's books, Krishna says, you'll hear at the end here coming, one who reads Bhagavad-gita verily worships me by his intelligence. So Prabhupada, he burned the candle at both ends. He only would sleep like 2 hours at night, from like 10:30 at night, and he'd wake up at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and he would translate his books. He said, these are my personal ecstasies. Everything is there. Make Prabhupada your pure devotee guide, and judge all other devotees based on, are they representing Prabhupada purely? sincerely, without motivation, that's how disciplic succession continues. No one can understand God simply by erudite scholarship, boastfully bookish, bookishly boastful. Live by Columbia University or down here, live on East 11th Street and pay with a roommate $3,000 a month for your share of living in some, little box apartment for $6,000 a month, and you can walk around. Wow. Prabhupada writes that actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur says materialistic knowledge renders one more foolish than a donkey, because it simply makes you proud and unnecessarily attached to the material world. That the children of this age are being intentionally sent to the slaughterhouses of so-called education. Nescience, being trained up in illusion. We were hearing so much through the Bhagavad-gita that by devotional service, automatically all knowledge is there. Krishna is the source of all intelligence. Jadharani, this is one of her original paintings. She wanted to go to art school, for example, to get more training. Prabhupada said, you just sincerely paint and Krishna will give you all intelligence. And you look in many of Prabhupada's books, she became like the master without going to school. One who is fully conversant with Krishna science becomes eligible to enter the kingdom of God, the abode of Krishna. And Prabhupada goes on to nicely destroy the Mayavad or impersonal conception of life. We're all one. Yato mat tato pat, whatever path you accept, that's okay. This type of quasi-spiritualism is simply an envious motivation against Krishna to try to, make people feel cool that they're spiritual, but it simply ends in the most wanton, heinous hedonism, ultimately. You're God, I'm God. This is the most demoniac. Everybody's just walking around thinking I'm so great, but they're simply under the illusion of their lust, greed, and envy. No good qualities, no matter how so-called beautiful is their body or expensive are their clothes, because they're not a devotee of Krishna. Becoming Brahman does not mean that one loses his identity. Devotional service is there, and as long as devotional service exists, there must be God, the devotee, and the process of devotion. You could boil down essential knowledge into three things: Bhagavan, Bhakta, and Bhakti. That's all you need to know. And actually, knowledge is divided into three: Sambandha, Abhidayan, and Prayojan, of which Krishna assumes, Radha and Krishna, three distinct personalities. Madan Mohan, the attractor of Cupid, the enchanter of Cupid, that is Madana Mohan. Mohan is Cupid, bewilders everybody by material attraction. Krishna is the charmer of millions of Cupids. He's so beautiful. And we just celebrated Radhastami. Madan Mohan Mohini. Devotional service is so great that it attracts Krishna. He becomes infatuated. That is Srimati Radharani. You want to understand what is Srimati Radharani and not be a cheap sahajiya? You perform pure devotional service, centered around distributing pure Krishna consciousness to people in forgetfulness. She is the compassionate feature of Krishna. So you yourself practice compassion throughout your life. No one can break their way in. You have to be admitted. Such knowledge, what is one's real sambandha? Madan Mohan, what is one's relationship with Krishna? Then, I've realized my relationship with Krishna. What is the activity based on that relationship? That is Shri Shri Radha Govinda. O Govinda, I shall not fight. Govinda is instructing Arjuna, perform your duties, offer them unto me. The owner, Bhagavad-gita is spoken by Govinda, how to live in this world. If you become conscious of me, you will cross over all the obstacles of conditional life by my grace. But if you don't act in such consciousness, but through false ego, you will be lost. And when one becomes perfect in acting, thinking, feeling, willing, everything, based on full understanding of one's relationship with Krishna, prayojan, the fully manifest fruit of prema, love of Godhead. That is Gopinath. Krishna, the lover, maintainer of the gopis of Braja, the supreme souls, the topmost devotees. The devotee, the process of devotion, and the Lord are never vanquished, even after liberation. Liberation means getting free from the concept of material life. In spiritual life, the same distinction is there, the same individuality is there. Better individuality than just being, whatever people look at you and think you are. Man, woman, black, white, this, that, the other thing. Very limited, stereotyped. Entering into the abode of the Lord in one's individuality to engage in His association and render service unto Him. The green bird doesn't disappear into the green tree, but the green bird has qualities like the same tree. They enhance one another. So the devotee, you reunited with Krishna, they enhance one another. Just like a diamond and a gold band enhance each other's beauty. The Lord is the diamond, and the devotee who's giving facility for the diamond to sit is the golden band. After the attainment to the Brahma-bhuta stage of freedom from the material conception, devotional service begins by hearing about the Lord. When one hears about the Lord, automatically the Brahma-bhuta stage develops. Just like we're coming here, because we want to get something valuable, tangible. We want to get something superior that we can't get from not coming here. That is Krishna Katha, hearing about Krishna. This means that after liberation, the process of devotional service continues. Liberation is defined as the reinstatement of the living entity in his own identity, sva, own, rupa, form, constitutional position. Every living being is part and parcel of fragmental portion of the Lord. Actual liberation is getting free from misconceptions of life. Bhaktyamam abhijananti yavanyas chasmi tatvataha tato mam tatvato gyanva vishate tad anantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Any questions or comments? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What's your name, Prabhu?
I'm Bhakta Raphael.
Bhakta Raphael. Nice to meet you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You mentioned that one should understand his relationship with to Krishna. Does that mean as part and parcel of Krishna, or does that mean like how one relates as in like you can worship him as like a parent, as a friend, as a lover?
That's the culmination.
That's the culmination.
Your rasa is renovated, or you reawaken to that. But understanding our constitutional position on a fundamental basis is the preliminary necessity. And by performing devotional service, the pure devotee, he enters into human society and he creates a program. We were just hearing, Krishna himself says he creates the Varnashram Dharma. There are ways to act for one being a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, for a Brahmachari, Vyasta, Vanaprastha, Sannyasi. So, and it was described that if you engage your natural propensity, not like my natural propensity is to gamble, so but intellectual pursuits, managerial pursuits, agriculture and mercantile pursuits, or just simple type of support work activities. You use that for Krishna, the overall effort to please Krishna, and then you will make steady, gradual, natural advancement, progressive advancement. And the ultimate perfection of life is complete revelation of your Siddha Deha. But that not can be rushed artificially. There's a term called sahajiya, means cheap imitator. People imagine themselves to be on an advanced platform, but they're actually not. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Panchrachipi Vidimbina. That so-called devotional service, which ignores the authorized statements of the Vedic literature and is not approved by bona fide devotees, simply creates an unnecessary disturbance in human society. So first we have to understand how great Krishna is, understand how he's the controller, how he is the possessor and owner, and how he's the supreme enjoyer. We have to accomplish anartha nivritti first, before we can go on to higher stages of Ashakti, Bhav, and Prema. And Prabhupada's books, again, they're so perfect that everything, just like a doctor's prescription, it's perfect for everyone to take, and it will react or work in proper time capsule remedial doses. But it takes time.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yes.
That's a good question and can be answered at length.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Yes.
I was just thinking when you were talking about devotion, and
Can you speak a little bit louder?
I was just thinking from the conversation that you were telling through the verses and everything around devotion, compassion,
Mm-hmm.
and the material world, that we are in this material world because we haven't realized our devotion to the Lord Himself.
Right.
But I was just thinking that living in this material world, whatever action I take, sitting here, say running the air conditioner or even doing agriculture,
Yeah.
somehow I am harming some form of life somewhere.
Yeah, there's the... Okay, good. You have more to say?
No.
Okay.
So I want to understand.
Right. There's a whole religion called the Jains, right, in India, and they'll wear face masks. So you can read in the first canto where Dhritarashtra quits home, Vidura is instructing Dhritarashtra that, many things, but anyway, this is what I want to say, that in this material world, one living entity is food for another. That the weak becomes the sustenance for the stronger is the law of nature. Now, that's one reason why this material world is not a nice place to stay. So the human being, there's no sin for an animal. Like a tiger goes and kills an animal. Actually, it's interesting. Tigers, lions, they'll kill and keep the, until it's fully done. They're not going to just, like so-called sportsmen, they go out and kill unprecedentedly, or You see, like in wartime, the conquering force, they become so crazy, bold, and gratuitous that they just kill people unnecessarily just for the fun of it, So everything has to be regulated. So the devotees eating, it says in one place that if you don't offer your food to Krishna first, because Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, Krishna is the original eater. He's the acceptor of all food stuff. You're familiar. You come from Indian background. So when Krishna is offered the bhoga, he blesses it, and all those souls who are involved in the process of consumption, and in the fruits and vegetables, flowers. We offer flower. Krishna very much likes flowers. We grow and pick flowers. To be a pushpanjali, a flower put into the hand of Krishna to decorate, it's the perfection of life. That's kind of what we're doing. We're offering ourselves to the spiritual master. Please engage me in this great Sankirtan mission. We have to give our life to something. So instead of serving the man, serving mammon, serving nothing, everything to gain, nothing to lose. In material life, it's the opposite. Nothing to gain and everything to lose. You lose. What profited a man if he gained the whole world but loses the immortal soul? So that's the Bhagavad-gita and all the allied Vedic literatures. How to live in such a way that there's no violence, and the living entities that you come in contact with, they become benefited. I don't want to talk too long on this, but basically, it's not an evolution of species, it's an evolution of consciousness. So there's lower forms of life, such as tree life, plant life, consciousnesses. There is a soul in the tree standing for 150 years in the same place in freezing cold weather. How could you tolerate that? That's actually a reaction to wanting to be naked and just like really crazy, lusty activities. This is what you like, to be naked? Okay, you stand as a tree. You can be naked. But the tree is doing a service, but it's a reflection or an indication of the beauty of the spiritual world. So we like to take a walk in nature, and it calms the mind and is peaceful. And there's so many things that trees do. So they're burning off their bad karma, those souls, by doing benevolent work. And the example of a tree is given. It's providing shade. It doesn't protest when it's cut down. Hey, you bumped me in the subway. Barrage of curse words. No problem. We're all trying to do our best. You sit in the chair first in the subway. Something like that. So, the trees, the plants, when the devotees... Actually, there was one place in the Bhagavatam where trees were unnecessarily being burnt down, just like they're burning down the Amazon rainforest. There's great protest against that, rightfully so. So, people are making all these ridiculous magazines and newspapers, all about totally stupid stuff, unnecessary. That's sinful. These trees are being cut down to make paper. And Prabhupada actually says the trees can only be made to paper to make books and information that clarifies our relationship with Krishna. All other types of literature is just nonsense, So yeah, it's a very good question, and we have to be very alert to that all the time. But there's a way that you'll never be implicated. And actually, everything that you do within your life, if you're on the platform of being a devotee, it benefits countless living entities, especially the loud chanting of Hare Krishna, but mostly meant for human beings. Jeev Jago, wake up, come to your senses. But the dogs, the cats, the pigeons, all living entities, the trees, they're benefited and elevated. And even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he caused trees, dogs, that I can think of right off the top of my head, 2 stories. He sent the 7 trees back to the spiritual world. A dog who took a liking to the devotees. He gave him prasadam from his own plate. He went back to Godhead the very next day. Anything else? In the back, you have to speak loud so I can hear.
Yes. It's my first time.
It's not loud enough.
It's my first time here.
Okay.
And you were talking about how we are more than our, like you were saying.
I'm gonna need help.
someone
I can't hear
to
it.
love their mind, to love their soul, not their mind and body, because you're your soul. And I just had like what I started thinking about that interesting. This summer I went through an accident.
I'm hearing really half. Maybe you need to come up.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
it's okay.
Otherwise, I'll ask somebody in the back to tell what you said, and then it's like slows down the understanding process.
Before you were talking about loving someone is loving their soul and not their body.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that comes from the idea that we are more than our bodies, we're
Yeah.
our soul. And this summer I went through an accident, and I was in.
An accident? Okay.
So sorry. And I experienced a lot of physical pain. So I told
Take your time.
I'm sorry. And in those moments, I was conscious of meditating before, but in those moments, I couldn't help but think that my body was everything since I was in so much pain, physical.
Right.
And I tried to think, like, my mind is still positive. I can still get through this. But yeah, I just couldn't help but think that my body was everything at that moment. I just want to know, like, what you have to say.
You came to the right place. If such things point people or ultimately you come to the position of desiring self-realization, then that seeming disadvantage turns into your greatest advantage. One definition or qualification of a devotee, a Vaishnava, he turns a disadvantage into an advantage. We mentioned Jesus Christ. I mean, the most common example, simply glorious. He couldn't even think of a more extreme, misery of, just horrible. So there are many similar examples in our Krishna conscious history. There's the devotee Prahlad Maharaj. His devotion was so great that he caused Krishna to assume an unprecedented, never before amazing incarnation, the half man, half lion incarnation, Lord Nrsingadev, who is the protector of the devotee, the righteous, and the good people from the hands of the miscreant, demoniac, and the bad people. Ultimately, this Prahlad, he was only a 5-year-old boy, can you imagine? And his father was a very big, we use the word demon. Demon means really bad person, non-devotee. Like if you take Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin and put them together and multiply them 1,000,000 times over, how bad that is. So his father, his name was Hiranyakashipu, he became so powerful that he gained control over all the planets, the entire universe. He became the tyrannical leader. And he was a devout hater of Krishna, of Vishnu. Vishnu is another name for Krishna. And Prahlad, amazingly enough, was the greatest devotee of Krishna. And when his father came to understand that, it's not just childish foolishness, but my son really is a devotee of the one I hate the most. He started a campaign to try to kill him, first with his henchmen, and devised the most, diabolical, throw in boiling oil, have them come and try to chop him up with axes and swords, have a big giant elephant come and crush his head, throw him off a cliff, administer poison, other things too. All of those things had no effect. It was like in a transcendental bubble by dint of his devotion. I'm saying this because we can achieve a state where we become so removed from our material body that even something happens to our material body, we're detached, we're aloof. And ultimately, we all have to practice for the final exam, which is the time of death. We all have to give up this body. And Krishna says, for the pure devotee, he doesn't feel the pain that a non-devotee feels at the time of death. But he feels just like lightning, and instantly there's illumination. You're immediately in your spiritual body without any pain whatsoever. That is the triumphant victory and culmination of the most successful, perfect human form of life. So I would say the experience that you went through, if it has brought you, to seriously question and want, real answers to things, Krishna, people want, like I was saying in the beginning, he's fulfilling everyone's desire. If you want the real thing, Krishna's in your heart as the super soul. Such a kind friend. Say you have you have a friend, and that friend turns against you, and then and I'll just send somebody to always watch, or like you have your son or daughter who becomes a crazy and goes in the street, and you're a rich man and you send like somebody. So Krishna, he comes as the super soul. Even in the non-devotee's heart, he's always trying to give intelligence, realization. He's waiting for you to turn, not by gun, love me, but you willingly come. So anyway, this great demon, he ultimately said, you know what? You've always said that there's a God greater than me. That I'm God. I'm the most powerful. Look at me. I'm in charge. I've captured all the universe and I've subjugated everything and everyone. Everyone must bow down to me. And by whose power have you become so proud that you can supersede me? You say that God is everywhere? Well, I want to see God come because now I'm going to kill you. I'm going to sever your head from your body. Is your God in this pillar? He's in a big, like fancy assembly room in this big pillar, Said, yes, God is everywhere. Little boy said to his father, he's in the pillar. Really? Well, I want to see your God come to protect you. And then like with great anger, he struck his fist against that pillar. And right at that moment, this most tumultuous sound happened. It was like more than millions of thunderclaps. A completely super mundane, supernatural sound that no man-made agency could create. And right at that moment, Krishna appeared in the most fearsome form of Lord Nrsimhadev, half man, half lion. And actually, this demon had gotten a benediction that he would not be killed by any man or animal, would not be killed in the land, sea, or sky, not be killed by any weapon, not be killed by anything alive or dead, not killed by any type of living being created by Vishnu, by any species of life, and not be killed in the daytime or the nighttime, and not be killed inside or outside of any residence. This is material life. We try to figure out all different types of ways to circumvent the infallible laws of God and nature and think we're okay. All right? So all those benedictions were kept intact, and he appeared not as a man, not as an animal, but half man, half lion. And he killed him not with any weapons, anything alive or dead. He killed him with his fingernails. Fingernails, they grow, but you can't really rightfully say that they're alive or dead. fingernails. And he killed him in actually this pillar. It was in the front threshold into the big palace. So he killed him. This is one reason why in India, when you enter into a temple, you take you touch the threshold and put it to your head, because this is where Lord Nrsingadev appeared. Not inside or on the threshold. He wasn't inside, he wasn't outside. It happened at dusk. It couldn't be said to be nighttime or daytime because it was just at the point of the sun going down below the meridian. What else? Not by any creature created by Lord Vishnu. He appeared in an adbhuta, never before wonderful form seen before.
Not on the ground?
Huh?
Not on the air, not on the ground?
Oh yeah, not in the land, sea, or the sky, so he put him on his lap. It's not in the land, not in the ocean, not in the sky. So you think you're more intelligent than God? God is more intelligent than anybody who thinks they're intelligent. So, transcending the pain of the body, it happens automatically by the strength of your renovation of your pure devotional service to Krishna. It happens as a byproduct. You don't have to strive for it. Krishna says of all yogis, and yogis are known to be able to withstand bodily pains and can very much nicely direct their mind and senses. They get mystic powers. Of all yogis, one who is most intimate, one who is one with me in loving devotional service and most intimately united with me in yoga, he's the supreme mystic. Automatically, without thinking, Krishna makes you so. So that would be my answer to your question. Thank you very much. Okay, maybe we'll take one more. We've gone way over time by 15 minutes. You want to do kirtan? Or are we going over time?
There is a question.
Okay, let's see. Go ahead.
Well, you were saying that, speaking about people spending money to go to big universities.
I can't understand. I can't hear.
You were saying that people are paying money, a lot of money, to go to big universities.
Right.
And they just keep them in a mode of ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Should we really say that? I know.
Should we what?
Should we really what?
Really said that.
Should we really say that?
Say that? Because I know they're not teaching them about God consciousness. But don't we need all those people, like those doctors, those lawyers, those,
First of all, we're speaking here, and people are coming here because they want to learn about the higher knowledge of devotional service. So what we would say to people in general who are already in that way would be different. But the idea is that all different types of knowledge is to be used in Krishna's service. So doctors, lawyers, various types of technicians, that is all right. But we see in universities they teach this false theory of science, life comes from chemicals. Ultimately, it's based on atheism. And this is what is called as nescience, and this is violence. This is violent. This is slaughtering people's brains and intelligence by giving them false information, false knowledge. Prabhupada was against that. He didn't want secular education for devotees. But if someone is very, very qualified, Prabhupada would say, you go on and get your PhD in a certain field of knowledge so you can defeat those so-called scientists and scholars at their own game by using the language and the terminology that they're familiar with. But real education means to prove that life comes from life and that everything comes from Krishna. That's real knowledge. So the answer to your question simply is proper and practical utilization. Thank you very much. Would you like to add to that, Atma?
Yeah, I would just just like to add that Ram Roy, our speaker, knows that relatively speaking, in the material world, I'm a rather educated person, having gone to Ivy League University and top law school, and very, very overly involved in the fast track of the material world with business people, and yet I'm a close associate with Ram Roy. So I think we shouldn't misunderstand what Ram Roy is saying to think that he doesn't recognize the value of going into being involved in the material world as long as you use it in devotional service.
Yes.
There's no question that Ram Roy doesn't. He's not speaking about that.
You see, when Prabhupada would say that everything is zero, but if you add one in front of it, it becomes, it's like zero. Okay, just guy just doing some nonsense in the street, that's zero, because it has no connection with Krishna. We could sort of say that the best that the material world has to offer in terms of business and education, all these things, is many, many zeros. So if I have just one zero and I put a 1 there and I only have 10, but if I have many, many zeros, I have a million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, on and on and on. And ultimately, that Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad-gita, yad yad arati shrestas, that which the leading people accept, common people will follow. So people with the so-called most intelligence, most fame, most wealth, most political standing, they should actually take to Krishna consciousness, because people in general will follow them. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thank you everyone.